long. And I looked out, and it's a private drive, so there's like no reason for anyone to be coming through. And I'm standing in front of the slider on the third floor, and I look down. There's this guy staring up at me with binoculars, and I had just done a show not too long, like 4 or 5 hours before. Sensitive show. I talked about sensitive things, sensitive theories, and things that I've experienced and we're dealing with. And this guy with binoculars staring up at me. So I nonchalantly, I walked by the slider so he can see me anymore. I walked over to the door, and I ran down those stairs as fast as I could, man. I ran out that door. He was long gone. But I'm not a nervous person. I don't exaggerate, and I don't jump to conclusions, and I don't, obsess about things. But I do observe, and these things happen for real. And I used to hear people talk about this stuff, and I'd be like, yeah, whatever, But this happens because it's happened to me.
Oh, yeah. Hey, now we need to take like a 2-minute break. I'm going to put you on hold for a minute, so don't hang up. We'll be back in 2. Okay, yeah. I mean, abductions do happen. And, again, if you felt you have been abducted or somebody that has, get a hold of us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. That's nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
Listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
We try to bring you, interesting stuff in the paranormal, everything from UFOs to Bigfoot, to encounters with Bigfoot even. Hey, Shane, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Anyway, moving right along. Also, you sent me actually a picture of an alien.
Yes, sir.
When did that happen, and when did you see that?
Now, we've been working there's different areas around the United States and, all around the world that have weird things happening. We call them paranormal flap areas. So you'll have areas, sometimes several towns put together that have strange cryptid sightings. People are seeing, Bigfoots and dogmen, but there's also multiple haunted homes. There's a lot of UFO sightings. So you got everything. It's a mixed bag. Now, there's something fueling that, and so we're working in a lot of different areas that have all these different things happening. And by the way, all those areas are surrounded by rivers and streams. So isn't the missing 401 case files. If you look at all those clusters, they're all surrounded by rivers and streams too. So some of the strangest areas are surrounded by rivers and streams, and that's a whole different category that we can talk about, because that's really aiding the process of all this weirdness, and that's a part of it. And so we call them paranormal flap areas. So in Connecticut, my friend Paulino has been working in Western Connecticut since 2005. First he was called to his house. It was an old farmhouse that was 6 generations long, and they have everything going on at this property. They've seen the UFOs, but they've seen weird cryptid creatures around. But the house itself that they own, they have everything going on. They see apparitions of people. They see legs sticking out of their ceiling, walking from the knee down like it's walking on the floor, but yet the legs are sticking through the floor. They see these boxy figures staring in the window from them from outside. all kinds of paranormal activity and apparitions. They've also seen like alien creatures standing in their bathroom and whatnot. So they're seeing all kinds of stuff. So Paul was called there in 2005. He and I have been working together since 1998, but it was close to his area. So he was his son Ben, who's been doing this with him as well. They took this on by themselves. So it was like a father and son thing that was kind of more local to them. So I hadn't, I wasn't extending the invite at that point. But as the years progressed, they talked. Paul talked to an author, best-selling author of the world's most haunted house, William J. Hall, and he told William J. Hall about this case, and Paul jokingly said, "Bill, you should write about this." And Bill said, "Okay," and Bill did. Like within no time at all, he whipped out a book about this house, and I had a part in it too. Like I wrote some stuff in it, and I was like the lead, did the whole investigative part of it for the book and stuff. So that was called the Haunted House Diaries, Haunted House Diaries by William J. Hall. And so, but this house had everything going on. So here's what's strange about this property and this whole flap area. They started reporting seeing military vehicles, military helicopters, but there's no bases nearby. And they were seeing, I should say, black helicopters, not necessarily military helicopters, black helicopters. And so one day, the homeowner and Paul, I believe, followed the direction of which they were seeing them coming from. And they happened in this very country area on the next town over, very country area. And they're on this dirt road, and there's this dairy farm. And this dairy farm had 2 silos, this old English-style dairy barn. It's huge. And this one house, which is like a bungalow, literally like the smallest apartment you'd ever saw. It was like a shack, but it was a little bungalow house. And a tiny little barn, and then just a prairie. And not a whole bunch of land. I forget exactly, but I think it was like 9 acres or something like that. And no farming going on, though. No farming at all. But black vehicles always in the parking lot. And so we had Paul at the time before I got brought in during the writing of the book, which was around 2014 or 15. And that's when I got involved. And we figured a lot of stuff out after that. But now, Paul over the years took pictures of this dairy barn. Now, they had torn down the barn, left the silos. They covered, now follow this is crazy. They covered the area where the barn was, and this is a big barn, with metal sheeting, shiny metal sheeting. So when you saw it from Google Earth or whatever, the satellite images, it was just really whited out in that area, but they were excavating underneath the ground, and you started seeing all these piles of loam and dirt forming up in the back part of the property. They were excavating underneath the ground. Next thing you know, there's like transformers sticking out of the prairie. And there's no word of a lie. This is crazy.
Now, are we talking about power transformers, the big, huge ones?
Yes, sir. Not real huge ones, but probably 3 foot high by 3 foot in depth by 2 foot wide, something like that. And then what looks like maybe vent stacks sticking up out of the prairie. Now, then the metal sheeting goes away. Now, we got photos of this from satellite images, too, over time. So this goes away. Then they rebuild the barn the exact same way it was before. There was nothing wrong with it before, but they rebuilt it the same exact way. But, so then we send people that are local over to the area to check on it. They're told to leave by men in military fatigues and machine guns. And
oh, you're kidding on that. Seriously? People went over there to check it out, and there's military with, wow.
Yes, sir. And it's really bizarre. So it just stood out to us like crazy. And on the telephone poles on this road, all kinds of weird electronics started showing up. And there's a very brand new radio tower across the street. Now, this is a dirt road. This is a country dirt road. Right across the street from this farm property is this really elaborate radio, which is brand new, radio tower that was erected in the middle of nowhere. We're talking country land, Western Connecticut, and there was no reason for that to be there. Now, I was doing a lecture in southern New Hampshire. Now, I'm in southern New Hampshire doing a lecture at a library, and at the end, now I had talked about this property during my lecture, and at the end, this is so weird and so coincidental that at the end, this guy says, "Hey, was that farm you were talking about in," he said the name of the town, which I don't want to say right now, Connecticut? And I said, "Yes." He says, "I was the one that put all the electronics and the radio equipment over there. I did the install." I'm like, "You're kidding me." He showed me the contracts that he was given by his employer, the coordinates, it was owned by, the tower was actually, it's owned by the Army Corps of Engineers, or at least it's registered with the FCC or whatever. And so I got all the contracts he sent me. So he was legit and said he had no idea why he's installing some of the highest tech stuff at this dairy farm, which had no farming going on, no cows, no livestock, no nothing, in the middle of Connecticut. It just was bizarre to him.
But you said one thing I found interesting. You said there was like vents sticking out. Now, is it possible there's an underground base right there?
That's exactly what I'm getting at. That's exactly what's there. And so we have a contact with a clearance, and we had asked him, or Paula had asked him, can you check into this? And the person just said, "I checked into it, back off." And we didn't. So now we a couple of the people, part of our team and stuff, looked into it. Nobody could really figure out who owns this land or whatever. So finally I said, "You know what, well, let me throw my hat in the ring." My wife is, she's a residential paralegal. She does something different, but her trade, or her college degree was in that, and so with a little help from her and learning a little bit from her, I went at it. I figured out exactly everything about that property. So I found out who purchased the land, and 30 days after they purchased the land, the tower went up. They sold the land. They purchased this land for like it was like, I can't remember now exactly, but it was over $7 million. And it made no sense to me, because we're talking just a dairy barn, 2 rundown silos, and a tiny little bungalow, and I think like 9 acres, I think it was. It didn't make sense. There's no way it was worth that much. But what that told me was whoever owned it didn't want to sell it until the price was high enough, and so somebody wanted to buy it for a reason. And now we're talking, this is in a paranormal flap area where there's a lot of crazy things happening, and wouldn't the government want to militarize the paranormal, if they could? And so I looked into the people that purchased it, and they were, for the best that I can tell, they're brother and sisters. That doesn't make sense to me. What brother and sister buys a piece of property together? But their father owns a defense contractor. He's a defense contractor. He owns a company that works for aerospace, that does aerospace work for the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marines, and sometimes the Army. I saw the contracts they were awarded. I saw the ones they were denied, but they do a ton of work for mostly the Navy, and they're a military contractor. So we know the military, if they have an interest in a piece of land, they don't buy it under their own name if they want to be secretive. They buy it underneath, Westinghouse or a military contractor. They let them do it. So I looked into this is a legitimate company. I'll send you that information. I don't want to make it public right now, but it's just so you know, I'm legit. What I'm saying, it's a company that does works for aerospace, does defense stuff solely, for the military.
Well, Shane, the big dead giveaway was that radio tower.